looking at the question, is consciousness personal? And what is consciousness? Consciousness, like I said in a previous recording, is not a concept. The consciousness that I talk about is the experience of consciousness, consciousness experiencing itself. We know that we are conscious. Undoubtedly, we know that intuitively whenever we're asked or ask ourselves, am I conscious? Immediately the answer is, yes, I am conscious. Then habitually, out of our conditioning, we refer to the I that is conscious as a man, a woman, a person. So we refer to I as the history, as a collection of memories, thoughts and beliefs and opinions and likes and dislikes. And this is what we mistake consciousness to be. But if we ask ourselves the question, what is it that is conscious, and really ponder about that question, we might come to the understanding that it is consciousness that is conscious. In other words, within the characteristics of consciousness itself is its conscious potential, this is conscious quality, and that there is only consciousness that can be conscious. So the question about is consciousness personal would imply that there is something bigger than consciousness that to which consciousness refers. In other words, like a master of consciousness, or a home of consciousness, or an owner of consciousness, which is the person. And so the consciousness would refer to the person in order to know itself. So for consciousness to refer to a person to know itself, consciousness has to be conscious of the person. It is not the other way around. In other words, it is not the person that is conscious of consciousness. It is consciousness that is conscious of the person. So, given that it is consciousness that is conscious of the person, that is consciousness of all appearances, of all thoughts, implies that the experiences are secondary to consciousness and not primary to it. In other words, the person is secondary to consciousness and not primary to it. In other words, the person refers to consciousness, and it is not consciousness that refers to the person. It is consciousness that perceives the person. It is not the person that perceives consciousness, that knows consciousness. This is why it is said that the mind cannot know that perceives it. The mind is known, is perceived, but does not perceive. Coming to the personal quality versus the impersonal qualities of consciousness, when you contemplate in your own experience, which is an experience of consciousness, because you are conscious, meaning you are this consciousness that is conscious of being conscious and that is conscious of this perception. When you refer to your experience and you ask yourself, what are the qualities of consciousness, you will find that there are no limiting qualities to consciousness. In other words, you cannot point to consciousness in space or time. You cannot find a location to consciousness, nor can you find a time where consciousness is or is not. You can only attest to the eternity of consciousness, meaning you only know that you are conscious and that you are this consciousness that is conscious. But you have never experienced a moment of not being conscious. Consciousness has experienced the body being in sleep or being under anesthesia, but it never has experienced itself. Consciousness has never experienced itself being absent. So this refers to the eternal quality of consciousness. So when you look at consciousness and contemplate from your own experience, you will find that consciousness has no worldly qualities, it has no mind qualities, it has no time space qualities, and therefore it has no limitations in space and time, which means no boundaries. Whatever has no boundaries is boundaryless and cannot be referred to as being personal, because personal means characteristics that are limited to person A and not to person B, which implies boundaries or limitations. Given that consciousness is not limited in time and space, then one cannot refer to consciousness as being personal. I know that's probably a difficult thing to digest, because we sense at the feeling level that we are this person, that we are this personal consciousness, but that is only due to our conditioning. It's only due to our blind acceptance of belief systems that have been handed down to us, since we're 3 years old. And so throughout our life we've been conditioned to perceive ourselves and the world through the I thought, through the personal consciousness belief system. And that is why you will find some resistance at the feeling level to accept that the personal qualities are made out of impersonal consciousness, that what seems to be personal, what seems to be limited, appears out of the impersonal and borderless and universal and seamless consciousness. Thank you.